Hi, everyone. I'm Marla Miller from marlamiller.com, and I'm presenting another episode of Marla Miller Talks to Authors and Content Creators, a podcast in beta form that I'm truly enjoying. I have the focus of this podcast, as some of you know if you've been listening, is I want the stories of writers who have come to the writing life a little bit later, not from undergrad to grad to writing, who have traveled down roads that they've gained experience on, whether they have been in a profession or had a multitude of jobs, doesn't matter. But at some point, they decided to be brave enough to take the ideas that have been percolating in their head, probably since childhood, um, and and see if they could do something with them in story form. And I'm delighted to have KRISTI Fox here, who I met many years ago at the Southern California Writers Conference. KRISTI was there initially as a student. She has since graduated to workshop leader, but when she came in 2015, she wanted to be a writer, but she wasn't. And I'm going to ask her to talk about what that first time experience at a writers conference, how it helped her feel like, gee, maybe I could actually write a story that would get published. And that really is why you go hang out with writers. And I think that today's writing community is, we don't have enough of that in it because we're really taken to learning online. One of my writers said to me that before she went to her first writers conference, everything she knew about craft she learned on TikTok and I think it was Instagram. Now, you can learn a lot because I'm on those platforms. You can learn a lot, but there is no substitution for learning craft. And I'm delighted that not only did KRISTI Fox learn craft, but in 11 years, she has more books than I was able to count. And so with that, I'm delighted that KRISTI Fox is joining us. Welcome, KRISTI, to Marla
Thank you,
Miller
Marla.
Talks to Writers and Content Creators. You
Thank
are
you.
you are both. My goodness. So talk to me, if you don't mind, KRISTI, about how you went from wanting to be a storyteller to becoming a storyteller.
I think I'm probably like a lot of people out there who have had stories in their minds, like you said, probably from the time they were kids, and
Hmm.
even told great stories maybe in person, like when they were with their friends or
Yeah.
sitting around a table meeting people. Um, but I had great experiences when I was young in school where I had the opportunity to write short stories and have stuff maybe published in those realms, even in college.
Yeah.
My One of my bachelors was in English, right? So I had plenty of
Okay.
opportunities to write um,
Sure.
and get feedback, but actually being a writer, the business of being a writer or an author, you know, after I, got married and had done my master's work, which was in psychology, and
Ah.
then
Hmm.
started working, right? Building a life with my husband, having children, all of those things
Hmm.
took time
Oh yeah.
and energy and focus. And 2015, like you mentioned, was the year when I was like, I have this idea in my head. And I had actually had an experience where I had worked with a wonderful woman at a bookstore, and she had introduced me to a book club. And, we had been friends for a long time. And in 2015, I had gotten a phone call saying she had passed away
Mm.
very unexpectedly.
Oh.
They found her dead one morning, just no
Oh.
warning. And she had been the person when we would work together. I was like, you know what, Elaine, when I write my book, will you promise to read it and like it? And she was like, well, I'll promise to read it, but I can't promise to like it. That's going to be on you.
You know what? That's a writer for you. That's
Yep.
very, very
Yep.
cool. Very cool.
And so I had this moment when I got that phone call where I was like, you know what? She's never going to read my book because I hadn't taken the time to get it written.
Yeah.
And so that was what prompted me to be like, okay, it's time to kind of find this storytelling avenue and get it down and see
Mhm.
what comes of it. And
Yeah.
so I did a search on conferences, and there was one that was in California, Southern California. It was the one in Irvine actually that year.
Okay.
And it was reasonably priced
Mhm.
and it wasn't super long. It was over a weekend. It fit into my schedule. And I told my husband, I want to go to this conference and see what happens. And I had this idea for a book and he was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I did that, flew out there, had kind of a little mom only
Yeah.
vacation, right? Because
Sure.
I do have three boys.
Uh-huh.
Um,
You were
and
busy.
I was
You,
busy
yeah.
and just went to one of the first sessions was Pitch Witches. And
Is that
I
where we met?
that is where we met.
Cool.
Yes, yes.
Cool.
And did my pitch. And actually, the funniest thing was I did my pitch
Hmm.
and the feedback was do it again. So I
Oh,
did it again.
okay.
And you actually said, I don't read fantasy, but I want to know more about this.
And and you know that I was telling the truth
Yes,
because,
100%.
yeah, I don't lie about that stuff.
Nope, nope. If
Mm-mm.
there's anything, if you ever don't ever doubt that Marla's telling you the truth. And that's why I was like high praise. I was like, I am not a crazy person.
Yeah.
This could be a really good
Yeah.
idea.
You got something.
Getting to be around people like you, um, you know, Janice, just all the wonderful people that come to that conference, right? Where they've got experience, but they've also got that creative streak and that love for creation and storytelling.
Yeah.
It's an energy that just fills you up. And so when you leave there, you leave kind of with the belief that you can do this, but you also leave with those connections and being able to go back to those people later, even online if you want to, or going back
Absolutely.
in person
Yep.
and saying, hey, here's where I'm at. How are you doing? And you start building that community of artists together, and it really does feed you. I 100% believe that. And that's one of the reasons why I did want to be a workshop leader and start growing as I got more and more involved. Um, I started writing my book. I actually came back from that conference and said to my husband and my kids a few months later, okay,
Mama's going
mom's
to be busy.
mom's going to be busy.
Yep.
If you see me sitting on the couch, um, you have the right to say to me, shouldn't you be writing? And when your
Good.
7 year
Can't
old
you?
says
Yeah.
that to you, it's a kick in the butt.
That's great. That was
Yes.
smart of you, Mom.
Yeah. Well, to get them all on board,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
doing this as a team. And so I sat down, wrote a book with my family kind of cheering me on from the sidelines, got it done. I can't tell you it was perfect by any stretch, any imagination, but
Sure.
it was on the page, right? It was there on the screen, the words were there, and I could work with that. And I actually had an opportunity to go to a conference where I pitched an agent and she was interested. And she asked for a full. Um,
Wow.
she that was huge. That was huge.
Huge.
I was already,
Oh,
ahead of the
huge.
game.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And she didn't end up picking it up. But what that told me was it's not terrible,
That's right.
right? It's
Exactly
not
right.
terrible. And so I worked on it. I edited, I revised, and ended up going through the publishing process. My first book came out in spring. It was actually March of 2019. It was the first book in a trilogy.
Hmm.
Um, and that released. And then I followed it up with book two, book three. And that was like once that book was out there, the floodgates kind of opened.
Now,
So
I'm going to stop you because what I didn't tell our listeners in my intro is that you publish under three nom de plume. You are
yes, right now.
K.A. Fox, urban fantasy, you're Krista
Mhm.
Fox, paranormal romance, and you're Kelsey Fox, contemporary romance. Which one of these were the first to get published?
KA. So urban fantasy.
Okay, okay, and was that the one? So that had three.
Three books, three books in that trilogy.
How long did it take you to do that, Christy?
So I released one every year in that. But so 2019, first book came out, The Double Zone.
Hmm.
Second book came out in 2020. It was almost exactly a year later, and it was right before COVID hit.
Got it.
So came out that spring, and that was Judas Kiss. And
Okay.
then that's when I started later that year during COVID when we were all kind of stuck at home and, I was working from
Indeed,
home.
we were. Yeah.
We were, and I was like, this is a good time, right? We're all
Yeah.
here. I don't have baseball games to take my kids to and stuff. Like things were adjusting, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm going to take advantage of this time. And that's when Krista was born, Krista Fox,
Okay.
and started releasing those later in 2020
Hmm.
and then shifted. So then I could, because I find it very difficult, the author voices for each of those pen names is different. It's not like I just shift over and it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
The voices in my head, as I say, the characters sound different. And I have been told by readers who have kind of followed me,
Yeah.
pen name to pen name, that it sounds different to them. It's not just exactly the same. Um, but I had to finish one of those stories before I could go back, is what I found. So, and then
Hmm.
I actually had with Earthly Shadows came out in 2021. That was
Hmm.
book three of that trilogy, and it wrapped up that arc of
Okay.
those character stories. And then in 2022, the fall of 2022, I released Reaper's Code, which is a spin-off. It's a new series, but it's a spin-off of that first trilogy. So you do get to see some of those cameos of those characters from the first three books again.
Interesting. A lot of writers do that. I'm just finishing up. I tend to do deep dives on writers, and Jodi Picoult is my latest. And so I have written. I mean, I have read in the last year seven or eight of her books, and so I've read enough to see. Oh, this character. She brought this character into this in a very different way. But good characters, you don't want to waste them.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that there's a tradition of doing that. I think also, oh gosh, one of my favorite detective, I can't think of his name right now just because I want to, but he brings his characters into several of his stories. So here's what I want to talk to you about a little bit, since you have a
Yeah.
background in psychology. What were you doing in psychology that might have planted seeds for these stories? Or were you not doing anything per se in psychology that offered fertilizer to your storytelling?
So my master's work when I started, my master's work was in counseling psychology.
Okay.
Um, and so I had a bachelor's in English and psychology, and then went into graduate school for counseling psychology. And my focus was actually going to be sex offender treatment and therapy.
Is that right?
Yes. And my husband, God bless him, was somewhat concerned because I'm a very empathetic person. And, being sensitive to the energies of other people, what he saw for me, he was like, it's not that you wouldn't be good at it,
Yeah.
but you would burn out really quickly because of the types of things that he knew I would hear. And so while in school, the research that I was doing toward my degree and my thesis and things like that, there was a lot of research out there on treatment programs, what was happening in the offender system, the correctional system, you know, just the different types of sex offenders as we classify them. So there were a lot of stories
Hmm.
about violence. And, I'd even talked with a couple people who worked at the BAU with the FBI, and just kind of got their perspective on things.
Hmm.
And it is looking back, I can see it would have been a very short career for me. I would not have been able to make it a long,
Tough.
sustainable career.
Yeah.
Um, Still very, I think it has worth and value in, if we're ever going to find a way to correct the problem. But I was not going to be able to be someone who made that a lifetime career.
And so
So,
then did you then take that interest,
mhm.
perhaps even passion to want to find out more about this population so that perhaps we can shift some of their or help them shift some of their behaviors. Did you take that interest and plant it in characters and stories?
I did.
Tell me.
So yeah, so even in the very first book, you have this woman who is the daughter of the devil, right?
Got
And she's
it?
actually out there hunting these, you know, demons that
Okay.
are in they're enacting violence on women. And she's trying to hunt them down because it's not going to happen. She's not going to let it happen on her watch, essentially. Um,
Interesting.
and so that is kind of the impetus, right? That
Okay.
gets her going. Her big thing is she's trying to protect the world from herself. I've heard her described as like
Ah,
an energy vampire, where she can suck energy and life from people. Um, but so she's kind of isolated herself. But when she sees this pattern
mm-hmm.
of violence against women that's happening, she kind of goes on the hunt and puts herself out there. Even though she's young, she's trying to prevent the worst from happening as much as she can.
Give me the
And
title of that book. Which one is
that
that?
is called The Devil's Own.
The Devil's Own.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if that's the one that you read from, but I just wrote that down because I got to read it.
Yeah. It was there were even scenes where like I was like, honey, I would tell my husband, like, I need your help. I'm not sure if the way I'm describing this,
Yeah.
she's in a fight with this guy and he's got her on the ground and he's choking her. I'm like, I don't know, am I describing it right? So he's like, lay on the ground, and we're acting it out. And one of my kids walks in and he's like, what is happening? And my
It's
husband's like,
all good.
I'm helping your mom with the scene. And my son kind of goes, is that true? And I'm like, yes, honey, it's fine. And he goes, writers are weird.
We are.
We are. But I was like, but I did write it well. Like it was well written
Yeah,
because it
sure.
could happen the way I was describing it, hand placement and stuff like that. And so, you have those moments, but the goal was like she knew that she could do something good
Yeah.
and be leave the world a better place. And that's what she wants to accomplish with her father, who by all accounts in this storyline, a
Yeah.
lot of people really like him. They feel like he's a really good dad. But he refers to her as Miss America one time. It's like, okay, Miss America, like you know.
Interesting. And so are all of your how many books do you have out?
So
How
as
many
far as
novels?
so I have well, let's see. I have over 50 titles. Now some are shorts. The
Yes,
cover
I noticed that. I wanted to talk
Some are
about that a little
shorts,
bit.
yes.
Okay.
Some are shorts, and then I've bundled a lot of those. And then I have, well, I did have stories that were released as part of larger collections, like as larger series. And then as the rights came back to me, I've taken them down and I'm redoing them. So I
Okay.
actually have released more. So I've probably at some point released at least 10 novels, and then some of them have come down. The rights are returned to me, and now I'm going to be re-releasing them myself. So with updated, like more edits, additional points of view, and then new covers and everything. So right now, if you were to look for novel length, you'd probably see 5 or 6
Okay.
there. Yeah.
And I wanted to mention, I've got it written down. The the ones that are, Sexy Lumber Snacks, 17 books. Talk to us about that because you
Yeah.
know what? These are a bunch of writers,
Yep.
and you're all writing your short stories.
Hmm.
And then tell me how you all got together.
So
How does that work?
author collaborations, especially in the romance world, are pretty common now. And
Okay.
really it's because of the rise of self-publishing and the
Mhm.
internet and being able to interact with people online. And so you have a lot of these connections happening. And so like you said, sexy lumber snacks, right? It's it's a series,
Mhm.
and the thing that links us isn't that we're writing in the same world or we have the same characters that transfer over. In most of those, it's a theme. So we all
Okay, so
have
you write to
a
the
mountain
theme.
man, a lumberjack, somebody. He's the
Oh,
focus.
oh,
He's the hero,
I
and
love
then
it.
you bring in your own take on it. And so what I do, and what a lot of authors try to do, is we try to write those stories, even though they're standalones,
Hmm.
but link them back to other series that we have personally. So I try to link those back to my rescue and restoration series about, veterans that have come
Yeah.
back. They're living a civilian life and they need jobs. It's not an easy transition, so they start working at this animal shelter, and they rescue dogs and train some of them to be service animals for other veterans. And but I link that series back to those standalones because some of those characters might pop up in those mountain man stories and things like that.
And so, how did you learn about all of that?
Other authors. So I
Okay.
I
Talk to me a
I
little bit about that because, again, it's network.
it
It's who
is
you
network.
know. Yeah, yeah. To
And
learn more.
that's one of the things that I talk to when I'm teaching authors, and especially like when I'm teaching my shorts class or anything. I'm like, make friends,
I
talk
know.
to people, start to build those connections. You can do that at conferences and you can do that online. There's a huge Insta love community where authors that write Insta love shorts, right? Where it's that instant love connection, right? And then you're able to kind of kick that off. But there's a lot of authors out there that are happy to support and create these, collaborations. And the nice thing is, it's a law of numbers, right? Like I
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
certain amount of reach, and my reach is pretty good.
Yes, it
I've
is.
been doing it for a while. Um, but there are people who have more reach than I do. They've been doing it longer. They've built even stronger readership. And so if I'm in a collaboration with other authors, all of our reach is then compounded, right? It gets even bigger, and we're promoting each other in that series.
That's
It's not
really
just me
cool.
saying, oh, it's my release day. I'm promoting everybody's release day in that series, and they're promoting mine when it happens. So it becomes an exponential thing. So when I talk to authors, I tell them not to be afraid
Yeah.
to go out there and make friends and just get to know some people, because that's how I started. I actually had a friend that I had met through like a meeting here in Omaha where I live, of other romance authors.
Mhm.
And I was nervous to go, but just kind of forged some of these relationships. And she brought up that she was starting to write some of these shorts. And then I was like, I'm interested in that. We traded ideas back and forth. And then when she was going to run a collaboration, she asked me if I would be willing to be part of it. And I think it was a Christmas one. It was a holiday one, which
Yeah.
holiday romances are evergreen. We've seen
They
that,
sure
right?
are.
Yeah. And it was fun. And I was like, this is great. And so having those women encouraging me and me being able to encourage them, and we were able to build our list together and build our readership. And so it was a great way to kick off, that early part of my career. And I will tell you, the other thing was she had asked me to be part of it, and I hadn't yet released one of my shorts.
Really.
And so I was like, well, I should probably get some shorts done
Yeah.
and out there, And so that was also the kick in the butt to get those done and out there, so that I had something else to offer readers, because I didn't want them to fall in love with me and then have nothing
And then
else.
have nothing to, yeah, to offer them. Let me just say this as you were talking, and again, I discovered like sexy lumber snakes. What the heck is that? I've got to ask her about it. I've been in this business for a long time. Um, and while it was my second career, I thought I knew, I mean, I think I know a lot about the business. I hadn't heard of this.
Oh, you
You,
hadn't?
you just educated me, and right away in my head, swear to God, I thought of a collection.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought of a little collection. I thought, maybe. And so I might be knocking on your door.
Yay.
Yeah, for guidance, support, and perhaps give me a story. I
Yeah,
mean,
that would be
that
so fun.
that's really, I mean, here's the thing, and I want to address the audience because you know that I'm big on this. Our writers of today are not learning enough. We're not learning enough about our craft. We're not learning enough about our business. There's so much to learn. And get thee to a writers' conference or an online read and critique group or a meetup group.
Mm-hmm.
Or there are plenty of, in Orange County where I live, there are several meetup groups that they meet to write, they meet just for lunch to talk story. There's lots of ways to meet up with writers, and that's what we should be doing and not depending on the internet and our screens to teach us everything that we don't know. about this writing life. And boy, did you take that seriously.
Yeah.
I bet you were a really good researcher in college, in your
Yes.
undergrad, right? I knew
I
it.
loved it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I get that. I was a pretty good researcher myself, but you're Maron, as my mother would say. I mean, your list, I didn't know this. I really didn't. I mean, I've known you for a while, Christy, but I didn't know until I did some research to prepare for this interview just how prolific you are and an inspiration. That is
Thank
really,
you.
yeah, that's really cool. I got to ask this before we leave because I'm watching the time.
Okay.
Um, are any of your kids writers yet?
My kids are fantastic storytellers.
Yeah.
None of them enjoy writing,
Okay.
which is a little disheartening, but at the same time, I have hope for the future. So
Well,
you never know.
absolutely. And they're
Yeah.
still young, aren't they? They're
Well, they are.
teenagers.
So my oldest is going to be 22,
Oh,
and then my middle one is going to turn 19
okay.
next in about a week and a half.
Okay.
So he will, if in Nebraska, you're not legally an adult until you're 19. So he gets to buy a lottery ticket on his birthday.
Oh, really
Finally.
cool. Is that right?
My youngest just turned 17 in
Okay.
February. So yeah.
So
And
you
it
were really busy.
yeah. And I will say that they are so supportive. Like my launch party for my first book at
Yeah.
in 2019, they were the ones working behind the table. They were selling
Aw,
books. They were running cards. They were writing down people's names so that I could sign books. I mean, they were in the thick of it. They have told friends. They have done book reports on my books at school.
aw.
They have talked to their teachers about inviting me to school to speak to kids about writing, which I love.
Yeah, I do
They
too.
are they're I was kind of afraid that they would be a little embarrassed.
Hmm.
Nope, they're proud. They're
Yeah.
very proud. We just did an event. I was at an event in Tulsa this past weekend, and they were the ones, they helped me make bracelets. I had bracelets based on a couple of the books. They
Really
sat there
smart.
for weeks
Bracelets are
before.
in. Yeah.
Yep. And
Yep.
they helped make charm bracelets. They helped
Wonderful.
roll shirts. They helped do inventory. They helped box stuff up and load the car the night before. They helped unload when we got home. And when I called them to say, hey, we're on our way back, and they're like, their first question was, how'd it go? How did you do?
Yeah,
So having that encouragement, because I will tell authors, not everybody's going to get it. You need
exactly.
to build your corner. My um, MSG had asked me to be the closing keynote speaker, not in 2026, but in 2025
Hmm.
in San Diego. And I talked about, fighting for your right to write, like an MMA fighter. One of the things we have to do is, first of all, ABT, like you were talking about, always be training,
Hmm.
because always, it doesn't matter if you've been doing this 15, 20 years,
That's
there's
right.
always something you can learn to improve your writing. But you also get the opportunity to build your own corner. You choose who's going to be in your corner. And there are going to be people that say that they want to be or that they are, but don't necessarily show it. That's fine. If they don't get it, it's okay. They can watch the fight. They can watch your fight from the cheap seats or from the front row. They can pay for that ticket. But building your corner, you choose who's there. You choose who's your trainer. You choose who's the cut man,
Hmm.
right? Patching you
Hmm.
up and helping you get back in the fight when it's tough. Um, and so I think that is really key, is not everybody's going to understand or be supportive,
Hmm.
but really embrace the people who truly are in your corner. And that will lift you up and get you where help you get where you want to be. That's a big thing. I couldn't have released over 50 titles, right? In that time frame without my kids being okay with it. When they're like, "Mom, I told my friend about your book," or "I was at my friend's house and we were looking for something on Amazon and your name popped up in the search bar. One of your pen names popped up in the search bar." That's really a cool moment.
Yeah, that's
It
pure
is.
pride. Pure pride.
Yes, 100%. So
Hmm.
I think that really is key. And I think also that's why having these relationships with other authors is so important, because just like you had the moment where you're like a collection, all of a sudden you had an idea for a collection,
I
right?
really just did.
That's that kind of like energy we're giving each other as we're talking
Hmm.
through ideas, figuring out, twists, or I'm stuck on this and somebody says something and that sparks a new idea for you. that's why those relationships are so key for authors. We need them. We need each other.
Absolutely. And we really we can get a version of that online because I spend a lot of
Yeah.
time online and I get a I don't complain about that, but I do think that my ability to even know where to go online is rooted in the experience I've had over these years
Mhm.
in the writing life. You
Yeah.
kind of know you know who's gonna be in your corner versus who's probably not.
Yeah.
And the thing about writers, and I've said this before, I have always found that writers who are successful are incredibly supportive to writers coming up. But
Hmm.
but you have to get a little bit of success before that generosity kicks in. And not true for all, but I remember a couple of very well-known writers in my past have said that, in keynote, don't expect your people next to you because they're going to be jealous. They're going to listen to your story and they're going to say, mine's better, or gee, I don't write that well. But once you get some success, you appreciate, number one, how hard it is.
Hmm. It's work.
And and you want to be supportive to other writers, especially writers who, if you've heard any of their storytelling, you've liked. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, we want to support.
absolutely.
We want to support writers who we think have potential. And you certainly, when you came to the Southern California Writers Conference in 2015, you took it all quite literally.
100%. I did.
And
Yeah.
that's
And like I
fabulous.
said, it was a boon to me and a blessing in many ways because knowing that my idea wasn't out of the
Right.
realm, like having
Absolutely.
somebody who doesn't even read fantasy be like, I want to know more about that.
Absolutely.
That's huge praise,
Yeah.
right? Somebody who's not even in genre who
Yep.
like I would be interested in hearing more about that. That tells me there's something there. And that was the affirmation that I think I needed,
Absolutely.
you know?
I have to share this and then we'll go. But because I could chat with you for a long time.
Oh, forever.
In terms of affirmation, my first novel that I started writing, because I'm a nonfiction. I came into writing as a nonfiction columnist, etc. But at one of the conferences that I attended, uh, a workshop leader who I had high regard for, Sid Stiebel, I read something and the opening of something, and he pulled me aside afterwards and he said, "This did not work for me, but what worked for me was the voice. That voice is powerful." And I got to tell you, Christy, I floated home.
Yes.
I
Yep.
floated home because I knew he wouldn't lie to me about that. And it just gave me such a boost because I thought, Marla, who are you kidding? You're not going to be able to write a novel. Well, just with a little bit of encouragement, you know, we are able to do things that, maybe we never thought we would be able to do. Um, and you certainly have done that big time. So I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
say goodbye to you, but I want you to let people know where they can find you and where they can find your books. Um, so go ahead, share that with us.
So my website is fivefoxespress.com. You can
Okay,
find all my books there.
good,
We'll be loading. We even have merch now, so we'll be loading that in there too.
wonderful.
It's
Oh,
just fun.
good. Okay,
Yes. Amazon is an easy place to find my stuff.
okay,
My KA Fox stuff is the Murphy's Law trilogy and then Reaper's Code. You can find that out there too. And Murphy's Law is, I even think it's Barnes and Noble, like you can get it anywhere.
cool.
So, but and my shorts, those are exclusive to KU right now, Kindle Unlimited. So I really have my ebooks exclusive to Amazon. Business decision, but
I was
it's
going to
worked
ask
out.
you about that. Do you think it's a good decision that you made?
It is for me, and I
Okay,
think I will tell you, so the business of being an author is important. And maybe we talk about that another time, but there are business decisions you make along the way, from writing to authoring. I have some books that are traditionally published. I have some books that are self-published. So I'm truly a hybrid.
yeah, you are.
I have
Me too.
translations out there. It
Yep.
is. It's like the field or the opportunities have really opened up
They have.
because of the internet and because of, being able to be so connected online. But you can find me, you can come to my website, you can find my books out there on Amazon. That's probably the easiest. That's probably the one people Google that pops up first. But that's kind of where I'm at. And then I have people that email me questions, which I kind of love. So
Hmm.
I love when readers ask me questions about books, and then I love when authors ask me questions about writing. So that's certainly an opportunity as well. So
Wonderful.
that's
Give me the website one last time because it's a great name.
fivefoxespress.com.
Cool.
That's in
Chris,
honor of my husband, my boys.
and your boys. Very
Yes.
cool. Christy Fox, I truly enjoyed this conversation. I will be posting this probably by Monday morning.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I will give, your website and Amazon. But when you mentioned perhaps coming back on to talk business,
Yeah.
I'm going to remember you said that
Yeah.
because the business of writing is really why I got into workshopping. After I was published by Simon and Schuster and I saw what they did not do, and they were great, they were fabulous, but they could only do so much. That's really when I went into the teaching end because we've got to know the business of
Yes.
publishing.
100%.
And it has changed so radically. And so I'm going to remember this, Christy, and maybe grab another writer. Maybe we'll do a three-way and Zoom and talk
Yeah.
about what we've learned along the way.
I think that's excellent. And even things like because of Amazon, right? And I talk about this in the shorts class that I've done for SCWC. But so many people don't know that they have a short reads category and it's huge. Like they have a 15-minute short reads category for all different genres. If there's a genre on Amazon, they have short reads categories anywhere from 15 minutes up to 2 hours, right? It's a
And
huge market.
let me just say to my listeners, I didn't know that either. This woman is teaching me all kinds of stuff. That's very cool. I mean, I've seen the short read, but I don't even know that I've clicked on it, but I'm going to
Yep.
click on it now.
Yeah, check it out.
I
I
will.
mean,
I
I found out
absolutely
about the
will.
15-minute category on accident. So you never know.
You
But
don't
check it
know.
out.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much. And again, you'll see this posted by Monday morning. Christy
Oh, fun.
Fox, thank you so much. Enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. So if I've learned a lot, I can only imagine what my listeners have learned. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
It's been wonderful.
We
Talk to you
appreciate
soon,
it.
Marla.
Absolutely.